everyone. Good to see you all. My name is
Hello.
Cliff. Yes.
I'm Wango.
And good to see you all. We're laughing because we haven't done this in a while. And we were looking at each other like, you start, no, I
No,
start.
yeah.
But good to see everyone. So welcome to Conversation and Plugs. I think one of the things we were talking about was the season we've been in has been a very interesting one. One full of
Pain,
pain,
surgeries,
surgeries, grief,
deep grief. Yeah.
deep grief.
Yeah.
And it's a different season for us, and we're just glad to be back. And that's why you'll probably see there's been a hiatus in some of our episodes. But Wago, good to see you.
Good to see you, Cliff.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
seasons we've been through.
Yeah.
But we are hopefully back wiser, healthier,
More grounded.
grounded.
Yeah. Wiser?
Yeah,
You said
I
wiser
hope
already.
so. I mean, you
Yes.
must be. I mean,
Wisdom comes from experiences.
it does.
Yeah.
And in comes our guest.
Drum roll. And actually, I think said you're the right person to start this off after being away for so long, because
Yeah.
I find you very grounded, very tender, very wise. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. So,
That's a really unique combination of words to describe someone.
I told you
yeah?
I know you.
we know you.
we know you.
Stalked
We
you.
stalked
We're
you.
like, this guy is so deep,
Yes.
philosophical. Yeah.
Wow,
And all
okay.
those nice things. However, so that we properly introduce you, our guest today is Cedric Nzomo. I think some of the stuff we found was content director, Verge Group, right? Nzomo,
Yes.
right? So very interesting. Ced, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome. And
Very happy to be here.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this is, I'm going to just say it off the bat, my favorite podcast.
Oh,
Thank you.
Yeah, very happy to be here. Are we doing that? Okay.
Cliff, you've just done this.
Yeah,
listen,
is there an age
listen,
restriction
I have
on the-
recently,
TikTok?
I have recently been hanging out with a very
Oh, that's
interesting
true.
bunch of people. So yes, I'm just channeling them.
You're bringing the youth into this space.
Absolutely. Said, welcome.
Yes,
Welcome, sir.
thank you. Thank you very much.
And thanks for giving us your time.
I'm super happy to be here.
And we are really excited for you to be here. So one of the things I think when we met for coffee and we were talking, I think a lot came out. There's stories untold around business, around partnership, just about life. And when we were pulling up your profile, it was like content director and partner at Verge Group, Nairobi-based creative communication studio. AI came in handy. 15 years in digital and content marketing across Africa, Europe, US. Co-directed Nzomo and cultural content platform, featured contributor. What makes you different? You blend artistic instinct with strategic clarity.
Jeez.
You're a
Glowing.
systems thinker. Disguised as a creative.
Yeah, absolutely.
I like that one.
Yeah.
I saw that somewhere and I think I copy-pasted it into my bio for a
Yes.
few weeks.
Yes,
We took it.
Yeah, I saw that. Like, I can't remember.
the
what it
internet
was.
remembers.
Yeah, it was in some article. And then I was like, wow, that's nice. So I just copy-pasted it and put
Yeah.
it there. Yeah. But when you say them back to back, even I'm a bit...
You're like, is that
I'm
what are you
thrown off.
talking about?
Yeah, a little bit thrown off. Yeah, okay.
So the question is, I think just getting to know you, I think one of the things that hit us is you are deep in the content space. And that's what stands out a lot. And when we talk about US, Europe, I'm sure there's stories there.
Yeah.
But in this whole content debate and content discussion, in this universe of content, where do you place yourself?
Okay, that's a good question. I think there's a few... It's very difficult to kind of situate yourself. I should mention, just for context, I kind of ended up in the content space by accident. Because it wasn't an intentional, this is what I'm trying to do. I was studying software engineering and then I was writing a blog. And then I thought the software engineering was where the money was.
There's money there.
There's really good money there. And if someone is employed in that space, please stay. Employment is don't take it for granted. But then at the same time, I think the storytelling was kind of what kept me going. And then you find yourself trying to monetize the story.
Yeah.
Because now it's growing. You have an audience. What can we do? How can we make some money from this? You get your first this is 2005, your little first Google AdSense check. You're like, I could turn this into something. That's how I ended up in content
I
and the
see.
business of content specifically.
And the business of content.
So for me, I think if I was to qualify where I fall in the whole big, content sphere, it has to be in business, has to be in Africa,
Yeah.
and I feel like it has to be in impact somewhere. So it has to be stories that can move something, whether it's through education or through advocacy or through, spotlighting things that are just usually not spotlighted. I think that's where I want to be, and that's where I kind of sit, and then I try to do everything from those three seats. Yeah. I'm not 100% successful on all of them, but that's at least where I sit, and then try to like draw things towards me. Yeah.
So I think so basically you're saying that the value you see in content is so where have you been successful?
Where have I been successful?
Yeah. And the reverse of that as well.
I'm also seeing a lot of intersections. Yeah.
There's a lot of like overlap. Where have I been successful is a good question. I think I've been more successful than most people in monetizing.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah.
What does that look like? But
Okay, so I'm trying not to also throw people under the bus. The value that I have brought into the space of content, I think, has been in turning platforms into businesses. Right? So helping people who you have a website that does like gossip content, how do we make this make money?
correct.
Right? I think I did a lot of that. I was also able to do that for myself. I was very fortunate to have been able to do that for myself very early. I was very fortunate very early on. Do you remember the early days of Twitter when influencers used to get phones for free from PR companies? And then we talk about...
Tell us more.
Oh, you didn't know about this?
Oh,
Do you remember like 2010?
I don't think it has changed, has it?
It-
Those are back then.
I remember
Yeah.
Moses
This is the
telling us
Samsung,
about that.
Nokia.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Getting-
Moses was part of the list.
Yes.
Yeah. So
Oh yeah,
he-
Moses, yes.
Yeah, he was part of the list. We'd meet like at Hill and Knowlton, and they'd give us little Nokias and then tell us, talk about it for like a week, and you keep it. Back then, you'd keep it. Well, depending on the phone, it depends on like the price of the phone. You keep it or you get it at a discount. So I was fortunate to be in that early wave and realize ways that you can turn, your platform into money. And some of them, I think for me, the reason why I say I've been successful there is because I've not also followed the traditional rule of get money based on celebrity, but more so build systems that make money for your content, which is based on what I create, I'm able to push something that I offer that I can charge a premium for. So with my 500 followers on Instagram, I've still been able to pull at least one consultancy every quarter for the last 3-4 years,
Okay.
fairly consistently. And it's mostly down to just understanding what resonates with who, building content for them, and then targeting them and turning it into money. So that I feel like I've been successful at for myself.
As an individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, but also I'm pretty sure that my previous bosses in the previous companies, go to my LinkedIn, you'll figure it out, were able to see that because that's the position they put me in. They put me in a position to go and build platforms across Africa. So I think in like maybe 8 different markets. So Kenya, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, a bunch of different markets. And I would go around, find this platform has potential, let's build it out, and then find opportunities to monetize it. And then we do that and turn it into money. So basically, I took websites that were costing us that where we invested, our initial investment was giving some local bloggers maybe like $20,000, $30,000. And 3 years later, the platform is making like 30,000, 40,000 a month. So that was my goal there. That was kind of my role there. And then I realized in doing that I don't own it and that they don't own it. And like I was taking ownership away from Africans of their own stories. So I'm trying to do that with people here now. So I'm trying to do that for myself. I'm trying to do that with the partners we work with. That's kind of the driving mission behind Nzomo is just like helping creators find ways to make money and, coaching them into being able to be more sustainable in their storytelling. Yeah, and that's also why I like talking to guys like this because he constantly is like cautioning and pushing you to understand capitalization and all these different strategies. So I'm trying to see how I can pair that knowledge with what I already have on how to turn stories into money and make that, work. Same time, we talked about growth just before this. I think in the beginning my focus was money. It was very, very much just we for those of us who didn't grow up rich, the focus, the scarcity mentality always makes you like fixate on that, right? I think until maybe 5 years, maybe not 5, maybe 10 years ago, I had a specific number that I was working towards. I don't think that's my goal anymore, which is where impact came in, because now I'm more keen on, the lasting change, because you can die and leave your money here, but there's some things you can't, you don't take with you. You leave here, and those are the things I'm more focused on now.
I'm curious though, what's the reverse of that? Where's the failure?
Where's the failure in making money?
No,
Well.
not making money. Like we talked about
Success.
your success in the content space in terms of.
Like, where did I fail?
So what's the reverse of that?
Or what's failure to you? Like, yeah.
Yeah.
I know people say success, you learn. I mean, but I think equally.
Yes.
Success is great. Learn the lessons. How did I
Yeah.
make it repeatable? But also for me, the failures are just like, okay,
The failures are important.
yeah, very. So
Yeah,
what are
yeah.
those?
So failures, first of all, a lot of my failures in the beginning are personal failures, and I think we need to be a lot more accepting of one, acknowledging our own failures, and then two, letting other people have their own failures. So I was a terrible person to work with for many years, just completely terrible to work with.
What's terrible?
Okay, so I think we've joked about this before, but I have like terrible social anxiety, and I did not know this about myself. So I wasn't clocking that my social battery can get full and I can just stop picking my phone for a month. I would do that. I would genuinely just disappear.
Yeah.
We'd finish a project, we've made our big money, and then you just can't reach me for the next 2 months because I just decided nothing is going to burn. You guys are fine. You can sort this out. And I just disappear. And this is like 2010, when we're starting to build a business. And you don't realize how your own personal shortcomings can impact so many other things, right? If you don't just work on them, if you don't take time to actually just process them. So I'm using that as one example, but there were many others. I don't think I was always particularly great at communication. There was a lot of learning that I never really did because I didn't take school seriously, beyond a certain point. Like the minute I realized I could make more than my teachers, it was very difficult to convince me to listen to them. And then, so there's like those little shortcomings of ego and growth that really, I feel, caused a lot of my initial downfall, where something could have been great and then just kind of stagnated. And so on the grand scheme, the personal failures led to like what people mostly see, which was a lack of follow through. I've really cropped out a lot of stories of businesses I started that went nowhere, and platforms I've built that went nowhere.
Can you
There's
give
like
us
a
a number?
graveyard.
Could you give us a number? Yeah.
Yeah, tell
Can
us
I
more,
give you
please.
a number?
Yeah. How many?
Oh, I checked the other day. I think this is company number 14.
Good job.
1-4.
Yeah.
Well done.
Thank you.
Yeah. Your battle scars.
Yeah, I want to say I have battle scars, but yeah, and those are registered. Those are the ones I registered.
Okay.
Yeah, they're the ones where it was an idea and then it went nowhere.
And all of the themes are all you.
What do you mean?
Like you were self-introspecting and you were saying that a lot of the failures have been down to me personally.
Partially.
Partially.
Yeah. So like I think a lot of them, first you own your part in
Absolutely.
it. Yeah. So like I try to own my bit in it as much as I can. Some of it was also just poor partners. There are companies that, I was supposed to get into with people. So like when I say registered, there's some where we agreed, we shook hands, and then I just never got my shares. And I'm still watching those businesses running and looking at those guys like, wow, you did that.
I'm watching you.
Yeah. Some of you know yourselves. So anyway, but at the same time, it's those lessons. Like I said, it goes down to, if I was more diligent, I would not have gotten into those situations. But I genuinely I wasn't bothered.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're operating economy of affection.
Yeah.
You know that little black book?
Economy of affection.
Yeah. The little black book at the kiosk where you just go in and you say, I'm taking bread, I'll pay tomorrow, and then we just
Yeah.
move on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would do that with literal shares of companies. We just agree that we're going to go in on this together, and then 3 years later when the company is making money is when I'm sitting there going, okay, so we really need to start divvying this up. And the guy just goes, yeah, and changes his phone number,
Wow.
moves to Texas.
So I'm sitting here wondering, do you confuse trust in terms of it being equated to equation into affection or friendship? Trust should have been, actually, trust has guardrails
Yes.
and rules,
Yeah.
and we probably like to lean on the other easier one, which is actually, for us to be friends, we have to, can we have some ground rules in
has
terms
to-
of how we yeah. I guess that, no, I muse at, I am a big believer in trust and what it unlocks, whether it's for your clients and stuff like that. And therefore, let's segue into, then you have partners
Yeah.
and the betrayals.
Yeah, pure.
Because I know you told us many stories around how. And then how does that come into you choosing your current partners? Because I was looking at Vaj and you guys are like 3 partners. Like after that whole, what's that journey in terms of you coming and trusting these partners, and how is that working out, and what are the lessons, like, especially when you're choosing who to do business with?
So first, I'm just going to, big disclaimer, I think my situation is unique. And
First
it's
of all,
not-
there's nothing new under the sun.
Yeah.
True, there's nothing new under the sun, but I think it's let me not say unique, bespoke.
Customized to you,
Yeah,
of
yeah,
course. it's your
it works for
experience.
me, right?
Yeah.
But 2, I think people should look for bespoke solutions when they're looking for partners,
Okay.
right? So don't
Bespoke,
take
based like in terms of personalities or
you have to audit yourself.
okay.
Yeah, you have to have like a good understanding of how, think of yourself like the Lego. I'm not Lego, but like a puzzle piece. You know where you stand out, but you know where you have your gaps, and find the people who piece together well with you, and actually then form a full picture.
I'm hearing your internal constitution.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's an extent to which, now going to how do you pick your partners. Within that audit, you will learn to kind of, like you said, trust needs frameworks. And I think that's where the difference between like affection and trust comes in.
Yeah.
Trust has to have some frameworks. There has to be something outside of the social contract of we owe each other. Now, I talk about that economy of affection thing a lot as an African behavior because it is. We have grown up and socialized and, culturally built systems where we allow each other to transact based on society. Because the kiosk guy might not know my name, but if he knows my house number, that's enough.
Yeah.
Right?
That was before.
That was before.
In,
So is
in,
it-
in
is it
enters
the-
capitalism.
But I just want to be clear. Is it in regards
And
to
greed
degrees
and-
of freedom? Like, I know you, or my brother knows, I know your brother, and yeah.
So that's what I'm saying. Social
Okay.
currency just translates.
Okay.
Yeah. So which is why I was calling it an economy, because it has frameworks where if I respect your mom enough, and your mom shows up and says, "This is my daughter, you should give her a job."
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
You've seen that situation
Yes.
happen a few times, which is how I think in the West we see this with like Ivy Leagues and the things there, but here we see it with basic structures like employment and school, basic school entry and things like that, where opportunities can transact based on social currency.
Social currency is equals to credibility.
Sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's affinity and affection.
Okay.
Sometimes it's just the relationships you build. Now, going back to the partner side of things, what tends to happen a lot of times is that we will put value in the wrong thing when picking your partner. So, for example, if we put blood, sweat, and tears into something,
Yeah.
me, you have sat here and we've worked on this thing together, and now it becomes something. We transact that blood, sweat, and tears. We say now we have bonded over this struggle, right?
Yeah.
Not always true. Because you genuinely have to check, 1, yourself, and then 2, the other person, and see whether that value system aligns. Do you value these things the same way?
Yeah.
Do you weight them the same way? And is this long-term sustainable? Do you have the same goals, right? Strategies are basically just long-term objectives and plans of actions to achieve them, and how you choose to do that. Do you align on those three things? Are your goals the same? Are your plans to get there the same? And is the way you want to approach them the same? If you don't have that, then you don't have a partnership strategy that's sustainable. So we weren't that structured in thinking about it, but like with my two partners, sorry, my three partners, with my two partners, I'm including myself in the
Yes.
mix. But yeah, with my two partners, one, I've known David for 24 years now, but we didn't talk business until maybe like 15 years ago.
Oh.
Yeah. So the first few years, like he was my instructor at the gym, and then he went off to do what he was doing. I went off to do what we were doing. We got our battle scars. We paid our school fees in terms of like the things. I can't remember who it was in a previous episode who talked about paying school fees.
Peter.
Peter.
It was
Peter
Peter.
Ndwati, yeah.
Yeah,
Ndwati,
who
you
I
need to pay
really
your
want.
fees.
Yes. I really want to meet him at some point. We've been circling each other in
Yes.
social circles for like years. Anyway, so we paid our school fees, and then we came back, and the first thing we did was commiserate over paying those school fees. So we sat down and were like, wow, this is what I've learned. This is what I've learned. This is what I've gone through. This is what I've gone through. Okay, cool. And maybe 4 years after that conversation is when we went into business together. So there was a period of time there where we were basically both just checking each other. He was sure before me, but that's because he had a lot more experience working with partners than I did.
Yeah.
I had to go around. I still had some things to learn. I still had some, stuff to do. Maureen was different because she is she's wiser than me by far, and two, she's a lot. You can see her value very immediately. She's one of those people where if you sit with her for more than 10 minutes, you can see where her strengths are in a very tacit way. Like she doesn't say it. It's just quiet, excellence in specific spaces. She's really good at, operationalizing things, which if you remember, my fault was just not following through. She will build the guardrails to make sure that, okay, over there's going to be a gap. Let's make sure that that's taken care of. She'll do that now. And you can have, she was previously in production for a long time. So I think her whole thing was just managing those types of pipelines where you have to have long-term vision. And then now she takes that strength to a business level. So when we sit down and have a business idea, in our case was, let's transition this production company and this agency into a digital content company and see what we can do from there. She was able to start, like, she could see the matrix, and she was just able to start saying, this is what you should do, this is what you should do, this one. And she never forced anybody. That was one of the things I think I appreciated about both of them. Neither of them ever forced me to join or like, come, let's do this. It was very much a, if you're ready, we're ready.
Okay.
When you're ready, we're
And
ready.
seamlessly, you guys.
Yeah.
And
So
you've been building a brand ever since.
Yep.
That's Vaj, and
So that's Vaj.
putting out products like Zaum.
Yeah.
yes.
So because I am a believer in formalizing trust,
Yes. Oh yeah, we did that.
and one of the things I see, especially across these informal things, I mean, fine, business starts out, we are friends, etc., but you need to formalize it, and
For sure.
there's instruments, because that's how you get your friendship as well. By writing it down and defining it. And a lot of businesses, even when we were sitting with Peter, he was just saying, and I believe it's true, you need to fix your shareholders agreement, right? Your governance is so important, and you find a lot of, and governance is for everyone's sake, because you're not two different, you're not two different people. Whatever trauma you have, you bring to your business.
That's true.
And you need to shield the business with proper guardrails. And I find a lot of, and that's what means then a lot of companies don't have continuity. How have you guys fixed that? Or you haven't at all? Is something you guys are thinking through? Or, yeah.
Did
That's a
you
good
think?
question.
Did you structure it from the beginning, or you structured it as you went on?
That's good, yeah.
I think we got better at structuring it. So we started out with one company. Currently, we run 4 companies together. So they all fall under the Verge group. But
So you have a group holding.
yeah. So
Or
now
group
there's
structure.
the group, and then there's the various entities. So like Zaumu is registered as its own separate company.
Okay.
Verge Digital is its own thing. The foundation is its own thing. So we have a foundation that focuses on creator and creative welfare.
Okay.
And-
Creator and creative welfare.
Yeah, so content creators and creative professionals. And then we have now Verge Concepts, which was the original 360 agency, which has been around for when was 2010, 15 years.
Wow.
And then now the production company, Level One, which was there from 2005. So we basically taken all the entities that were there. Now, in the beginning, it just started out as let's partner on this, Verge Digital thing. We split up the shares and then we moved on. At some point, we had to come back to the table and be like, all right, we need to get better at this. So we've been learning together. And one of the things I think that has built my trust and also solidified our partnership is that if one of us sees that we need to get better at X, we all go do our homework, come back, and then do it. So there's a lot of self-correcting that's been happening. We can't run a company like this. We need to do this. We'll all go figure out what that means, come back, and then action it immediately.
Structures.
Yeah. So like structures, culture. Remember when we had the conversation about you guys need to figure this out? All of us went and just like started reading up on it just so we can get better at it and come back and say, what's our actual plan here? Let's call people and try to meet them and talk about this. So it's been a growth journey together.
Self-learning,
Yes.
relearning, unlearning.
Yeah. It's also partially why I want to go back to school. But then at the same time, I think for where we are and for what we're doing, we've done our best to continuously grow and build something sustainable.
Who decides what? Cliff and I were having this discussion because each of you have your different roles.
Yes.
Who decides who should do what?
Becomes CEO.
Yeah.
Who becomes...
Why did David become CEO?
So David is group CEO because we needed... The thing we knew we needed at the group level was decisiveness and to some degree a consideration of what the business impact of what we're doing was.
Right.
So we're all very aware of where our personal biases lie. Dave is the most committed to the business goals. He's by far the most committed to the business goals. Mo is most committed to the team. I'm most committed to the impact. So we know if you leave it to me, we'll become an ideological, like idealistic, very
Good
soon.
vibes, inshallah.
Not even just good vibes, but we may turn into like a small revolution, right? So there's a way that needs to be managed. If you leave it to Mo, it's going to turn into a very happy organization. We might not get anything done. We might not, yeah. But it's also about understanding. That's at the group level.
Absolutely,
And
Yeah.
Dave,
Dave has a sign right above his desk, and he sits where everybody sees him when they walk in. He has a sign right above his desk, and it has like boxing gloves on it.
Yeah.
And it says the beatings will continue until morale improves.
wow.
That's a nice summary. He's not like that. He's actually extremely gentle, but the idea is he's very straightforward and to the point. At a group level, I think that's what we needed. We needed someone who was
Absolutely.
able to
Yeah.
just like, he'll sit and listen to us and just be like, we're not bickering over this. This is the decision.
Okay.
Yes, good. And we move.
Yeah.
So because we're three of us, if one person votes one way, all you need is one other person to agree and the majority is swayed.
Yes.
So he's usually the first vote.
I want to talk about tensions within
Okay.
partnerships because in a lot of businesses,
Yeah.
we come in as partners.
Yeah.
And it's what you're saying. You've had a lot of partners.
Oh, yeah.
How do you navigate
Business. We
your
have to
business?
qualify.
Oh my
Business
gosh.
partners, yeah.
Qualify business. Yes.
Yes.
Life partnership is something else. It's one person.
Yeah, she was on this podcast,
Yes.
by the way. Go watch her episode, Zayn.
Zayn.
Yes. Little.
How
Yes,
do
Leo.
you navigate your tensions in your partnerships?
I think this is the one place we have probably excelled the most
Okay.
because we don't take it personally. So we have, outside of the business, we have a friendship that's grown as well. And I think it's grown to surpass the business relationship. So like I was telling
Yes.
you earlier, if I don't have anywhere to take my kids, I know I can drop them off. Like if I had them with me today and they started making noise, I'd be like, give me 5 minutes and drop them at Dave's house and come back. And I know they'd be okay.
So there's a friendship in your partnerships?
Yes.
Okay.
Which I think helps us have like an earth. Not just grounding, but like an earth, a thing that keeps everything neutral. This is what we're trying not to compromise. The mutual respect we have for each other.
Yeah.
24 years of friendship is something you don't want to throw away. His mom knows my mom knows his mom. Like there's an extent to which we have this And that's why I was saying it's
Economies.
important to be aware of your context, right? As Africans, that exists.
As Africans, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, and true friendship. Yeah.
Yeah, it matters.
It matters.
It
I think
matters a lot.
sometimes we always try to separate friendship and like work.
Yeah.
But I do think that a good friendship can actually make a business even much better.
It can.
Yeah.
And if I'm your true friend,
Yeah.
you should look out for me, and I should look out for you.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And,
So like we
and
always
those are the values you. Yeah.
Yeah. So we always know the intention behind what's coming up is never, even if the tension is high. So like yesterday we had a really tense conversation about, just directions we want to take with the company. I was about to start saying things that were way too specific. But like we had a conversation where I was on one side of the fence, Dave is on the other side, and Mo was kind of caught in the middle. We finished that conversation and everyone was cool. There was no animosity. We didn't live there with nobody went home just holding on to I'm gonna.
It's business. It's not
Yeah,
personal, but
exactly.
friendship is important in
Yeah.
understanding each other's intentions.
So and that's why then you're discussing against business values. Does this make sense for the business? Is this something is this my own personal feeling? And if it is, it's fine. I'll park it and just go punch a punching bag and come back
Yeah.
on Monday and be fine.
Yeah.
I'm hearing why we're doing this, which is your values,
Mm-hmm.
and then how we're doing this is how your ways of working, and that has to be compatible with each other.
Yep.
Yeah.
And even speaking of friendship, I think that a story that we talked about is you just didn't happen, and you have battle scars to prove it when you talk about partnerships and friendships. And a story I came across, and even we talked about, which I found interesting, was your US story and the work that you used to do and how you landed here.
Yeah, that was a.
Tell us more.
Okay. So there's layers to the story.
I mean, from owning a company in the US,
Been
Yeah.
very successful.
being very successful,
Quite
Yeah.
successful.
and
Yeah.
then owning $1 million company,
Yeah.
and then
With 3 friends?
It was with were we 3?
and this was in the US, like
Yeah,
your-
so this was in the US.
What
So
year
I
was
had,
this?
This was okay, so I should point out several companies running simultaneously.
okay,
But at the time I think mainly 3, then there's one I was kind of screwed out of, but 2 main ones.
yeah,
So there's the hip hop fashion website thing, which was the one that got a really high valuation.
that was in the US.
That was in the US,
Okay.
and that was with my friends and my partners, and that one is fine. That one we didn't have any issues. It did well, and everything went well. Then we had a production company, where we did production and creative work and marketing. So it was an agency basically. It was actually called an agency, and that was with now 2 other. I had 2 other partners, and then there was one other guy who joined in eventually. So that's where we had a bit of tension. So it's the reason I'm trying to separate multiple things that happened back to back, because there's what happened with the business, which, just for perspective, I was 23 and we were making, fair to say, 6-ish digits in that company.
In USD.
Dollars.
Yeah.
Let's be clear.
Yeah, in US dollars.
In 20 some 20
yeah,
some,
no, I was like my early 20s.
Yeah.
So you were balling.
I was doing all right.
out of control.
Yeah, but you see, the thing is also you have to keep context of like how much it costs
Absolutely.
and
I mean, I
yeah.
know. A lot of guys are usually say, "Oh, this costs X," and then when you look at it, what's hitting your bottom line is way less than.
No, I mean, like we had. I was talking to someone about this the other day, and I'm like, yeah, we did a shoot, and it was like $250,000, and they're like, wow, like yeah, but just you have to consider that we had to fly 40 people, to and from, and then we had to hire like 4 vans, and we had to do this. So like that $250,000. At the end of the day, after everybody took their money, we left the 3 of us with like 15,000. And then we split it, and then
555.
Yeah, 555, and then each of us went and paid taxes, and then you come back home and you have 200K, and you've been on the road for like 2 months, right?
And rent still needs to be paid, and
Right?
everything needs to be paid.
That's just one job.
Yeah, that was
So,
one job. So like
$100
yeah,
left.
so like your
Context is everything. Absolutely.
context is so important, because then sometimes people are like, oh yeah, this is like high cash flow. But I said this to you, I think the first time we met. I am a very like high net worth, low cash flow individual. So like there's a lot of assets in the spaces I operate in, but there's not a lot of cash in my pocket at any given time, because it's doing something somewhere.
Don't
right?
rob him.
Yeah, don't rob me. There's nothing to rob, by the way. My wallet is emptier than yours. But at the same time, I think the benefit is that you're able to do things. And back then, this was the lesson I was learning in that business, was that you can create a lot of value and take care of a lot of things in the process. Because I was putting things off as expenses all the time. So that's when I stopped paying for fuel like that year, because it was always a business expense. My cell phone, even my utilities, because I was using my home as a home office.
Yeah.
All those were just write-offs. Anyway, what happened with that business was the minute I left, so I was forced to leave the US. There's a whole story about that. It's very long. Should we get into it? Anyway, so it's fine. Immigration, I think 3 things to know. Being an immigrant in the US, Obama was a lot. What we're seeing now with ICE, we're seeing it because social media exists. Obama did this way before. So
Oh, that's so good to know. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Obama
It's a
did
bit
this
more
way before.
amplified.
Yeah.
But it's true. I mean, anyway, we won't go there. But
Yeah, it's not worth getting into the politics of it, but Obama was not the person you think he is. So, yeah, so it was
Hello,
really-
Libya. Anyway,
yeah, you know.
Oh, okay.
Gosh,
before we're censored,
yeah,
let's
before
go
we're
back.
censored. So anyway, so I came back to Kenya by force on like a very short notice. Like December 4th, I got a phone call. Before the end of December, I had moved back to Kenya. Well, not before the end of December. January 1st, I was back in Kenya. Now the problem is, now my business is out there, and it requires my physical presence. It's not, production work isn't something you can remotely do. This is before remote work. So what I started doing was looking for business here and trying to use the same company to do work here. So we had relationships with certain brands. So I'd go to that company, try to do some work here and land a contract. And my thinking was, as shareholder in this company, that's okay. Right? No, it's not. My business partners sent a letter to the company to say, nope, this guy is no longer with us. And I just lost a bunch of business in the process. So the things that were keeping me going while I was here just vanished. And a lot of it was just down to whatever tension was happening at that time, based on, them feeling abandoned, trying to understand this whole thing of like, because they're naturalized Americans. They're not really trying to think, oh, what does immigration mean for this random African, Muslim kid? Like they don't care, right? So for them, they were dealing with their own things. And again, important to state, we were in our early 20s.
Yeah. Prefrontal cortex was not fully developed.
Gray matter, white matter.
I feel like you operate,
Yeah. No.
I just feel like you operate in a very high trust environment. And a lot of times when your fingers have been burned, you want to go solo.
Yeah, so I did.
But like, what keeps you going towards partnerships? Why do you keep going towards partnerships?
It's not intentional.
Okay.
So like after that, I went solo.
Okay. For how long?
For a while. Actually ended up getting employed. Okay. That's how I ended up at Ogilvy and doing that, because I was agency work. I literally met the guys of Ogilvy at a pitch that I was going to for that previous company, and then that's how I ended up at Ogilvy.
What pitch was this you're going to?
You know the company.
I know what to say the company.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a major beverage company.
FMCG, a major FMCG.
Yes, it is a major FMCG.
And then you brush shoulders with
the same guys
industry titans.
Yes. And then one day I got a call from BT, and
That's Bharat Thakra.
Yes, Bharat, and he was like, "I want you to come work here." I was like, "Okay." So he's like, "Come, I'll introduce you to someone." And then I was just ping-ponged down the pipeline, and I ended up in Depeche's office one day.
I know Depeche.
Yeah, we had like a really short interview. Hi, Depeche. We had a really short interview. I think it was like 15 minutes, went outside. But that's when I used to smoke. So we had a cigarette. And then, then I started the next day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I started as an art director the next day. So that's when I went now into employment. And of course, it was also need. I needed something to keep me going. Did the solo thing. and then went into consultancy, and that's when now it was like a partnership kind of, because I was going to do it anyway, but this media company came and told me they want to invest in the same thing I want to do, which is building content platforms across Africa. So I was like, okay, cool, our visions align, why not? Yeah, let's do this, let's test this out. So I started out as a consultant, and within 3 months I was the vice president in charge of content for Africa.
Oh, is this when we do clock it?
Clock it.
You clock. That's how you clock. Okay, so we'll clock that one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm trusting her. She smiled, so it seems correct. So yeah, then vice president for Africa, grew a bunch of platforms, and then realized these guys were not going to give me shares in the company.
Values. Your
Yeah.
values differed.
Yeah.
Your vision was
So
the
you should have
same.
negotiated it upfront.
See, but this is what I'm saying.
They're like,
Expensive lessons.
prove your value first, and then we'll give you shares.
Yeah.
Never works out well.
Then you get these contracts where it's like virtual shares, but you have to read all the fine print.
Yeah.
And somewhere around page 30, it just was
They
like,
talk about how it's going to vest.
yeah. And then you end up
Yeah.
realizing when you go back, and they tell you 3 years, it's 3 years, 3 years, 3 years. So 3 years is what sticks in your head, right?
Yeah.
At the end of 3 years, you're like, okay, cool.
Here we are.
Yeah,
So
go
now-
to Zurich, and I'm like, all right, so what's up with the shares? And you're like,
What shares?
yeah, literally, that was the
Yeah.
question. What shares are you talking about?
Yeah.
So, yeah,
We're really not talking the language of business, are we? We're not talking the
No, we're
language
not.
of business.
we're not.
Brands, structures, governance, systems, processes,
Systems run businesses, not people.
Yep.
systems
Yeah.
and rules.
Systems
Yeah,
and rules,
not
yeah.
people.
Yeah.
not
That's
people.
Actually, my favorite quote, one of my favorite quotes from Peter, and it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, no, when he said that,
Like people
single
pretend,
tier, single
people
tier.
pretend to run businesses, but they're run by rules and systems. So so it makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So I mean, keep going. I mean, here you are. I mean, and when you say you keep talking about content and
Yeah.
the business of which you are doing, you
Yeah.
said this way earlier.
Way earlier, yeah.
And what content is this? You're talking about music and hip hop.
Yeah, so we had a website called the Smoking Section. If you look it up, you'll find it. It doesn't exist anymore. It was smokingsection.net. It's now owned by Uproxx, uproxx.com.
It was sold,
It was sold. Yeah. So
and you did not receive any cent. Or you received some money.
those like I made money off the Smoking Section.
Okay.
Yeah. But it was like a whole thing.
But you landed in Kenya broke.
I landed in Kenya with whatever money I had,
Okay.
and then now the shenanigans followed. But like with the Smoking Section, by the time I was getting back here, my involvement was very little. In fact, remember when I was telling you personal issues
Yeah.
of not picking the phone up? My business partner, my business partner, the founder of the Smoking Section, still a great friend of mine. Hi, John. Is as I've left the country, is aware of what's happening. Like we were close enough that he knew even my girlfriend and had her contacts and everything. When he couldn't reach me, he was emailing her like, "Yo, where's Ced?" And she's trying to reach me, but again, my phone is off. No one can reach me because I'm going through whatever I'm going through, and I don't want to deal with you people. So that was the time when he was trying to sort out the sale, and he's trying to process all these things, and I'm busy sorting my own things out. And so yeah, the Smoking Section was sold in that window of time. And it had gone through previous transitions. So like we went from being a blog to being under Raucous Records, the guys who I think most famously were involved with like Eminem at some point. Anyway, but yeah, went to Raucous, and then from Raucous it went to Uproxx, and that was that whole thing. It was a decent sale, I think. Like I think they did all right. Uproxx is a big company now. It's worth several million. They did acquire multiple sites in the process. But yeah, I wasn't heavily involved because of my own. Yeah, like you build something and then just kind of watch it go. But in terms of the experience of taking something and then building systems to make it something worth selling, I was heavily involved in that part. So I was very involved in, us. It started out with like us bootlegging music, which was, if back then, were the guys with the Z share links and the rapid share links and the mega upload links that you used to download albums. We were the guys doing that. We're very responsible for a lot of the artists who are now running the world being discovered.
Like big up.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not even gonna shout them out. They're not paying me. But then we transitioned into doing music reviews and interviews and growing that side of the business to at some point partnering with like festivals and building out like events and experiences.
Like it was a whole operation.
It was a whole
Yeah.
operation. So like the to put it in perspective, at the peak, we did South by Southwest, A3C, and I think Brooklyn Hip Hop Festival in 1 year.
That's big.
Yeah, so like we were all over, and that's just on the festival side. We then had our own things on the music side. We had merchandise, we had T-shirts. It was pretty dope. Yeah,
Because a lot of companies, a lot of business people, like entrepreneurs, want to sell their companies one day. What made your company very attractive to?
that specific one.
Yeah.
I think
Were
it
there
was
internal structures?
no.
Wow.
I think. Well, I mean, it was the value of it. Honestly, at the time, was the audience and the hype.
So the creative value.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And you'd built an audience, which was the value. It's like there were followers, there was a brand.
So like Gotti, the guy John, the one I keep I mentioned earlier, his strength was honestly in building excellent storytellers. So like the editorial team, man, he ran that ship tight. But then the second strength was like he built a brand that so many people connected with so deeply, where he could. He just moved crowds with him. That's what they invested in.
Okay.
They really wanted a piece of all the people who are daily. Like we had such a high repeat. You could measure our traffic.
And this is which year?
This is 2000. So smoking section started 2000 I got involved 2005.
Wow, you were like early in
Very early.
in the internet.
Yeah.
The .com boom.
Very early.
So you
My
were
first
deep in
money
it.
was in like the .com
Yeah.
area. Yeah. So yeah, very deep in that space. And then the selling was in 2010.
Wow. So that's almost like 5 years later.
Yeah, 5 years. 5 years during which every day I wrote a blog, every day I edited at least something, and every day I did something for smoking section at any given point.
I think that context is so important. Then you land in Africa.
Yeah.
And then in the grand scheme of things, when you look at how content is evolving, how content has evolved, and why you're still in it. And I see you guys are building brands.
Yeah.
Within Verge, you're building products.
Yep.
Right? What's that evolution like? What has that been? What are you seeing? What's happening? Where are you guys going?
The crazy thing.
And how is that, most importantly, the umbrella is
Yeah.
how is this business of content evolving, and how, I mean, we are in it.
Yeah.
If I could call it that way, we are producing content.
Yeah.
And some of the things you talk about is monetization.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone is just like, let's monetize.
Yeah, let's make some money.
What's this evolution? You've landed. I mean, you've been doing content at a higher level that probably in 2005
20 years.
most people have. Yeah, it's actually a very long time. Yeah.
So, two things. First, I think when I came back to Kenya, my immediate first thought was, look at all these people doing this so much better than it's being done outside and not making a cent from it.
Oh, for real?
Yeah, I was really frustrated by that. Like I used to watch Ori and what she was doing, Ori Okolo.
I love Ori.
I love Ori so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, hi Ori. I love everything she does so much. I need to reach out to her. We spoke once like 2 years ago. Anyway, I was looking at that. I don't know if you remember Crazy Nairobian, rest in peace, Jack.
Yeah.
And like all those different people, Room Thinker, all the people of that time and what they were doing. And I'm just like, small systems could change this, right? So that's when I got interested in trying to understand what are agencies here doing. Like, is it that the agencies here don't have the structures to appreciate this? Like, are you not seeing that these guys have a bigger audience than your brand? And I had my own blog, which was more disruptive than anything. It wasn't built to monetize. It was my venting thing. It was called Diasporadical, and basically.
Diasporadical.
Yeah. So it was a bunch of writers who had opinions about society and what was happening, and wanted to share our stories. But we also very frequently held brands to task. So I feel like we're almost partially responsible for Safaricom having to get an online customer care team. We were the guys who would start those problems. So if people had, you want to complain, tell us the story. We'll make it a blog. We'll make that blog go viral.
Disruption.
We were absolutely disruptive. And so much so, like during political moments, politicians would reach out to us and just be like, take that down. There's a time I can say this because I don't care if he looks for me. There's a time Raphael Tuju rolled up on me. Yeah, him and his people. Yeah, told me to come to Lyco, sit down, talk to me like I was a child. Went back and wrote about it. Like, you're not doing this to you. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna
Yeah.
anyway? So the whole idea, I think, is just there was a potential I was seeing, and I was like, we need to figure out how we break this ceiling. And I didn't know how to do it at the time. So what I ended up doing was trying to equip myself. The quiet part of the story that a lot of people don't see is then I went to the Content Marketing Institute, because you could do that online, tried to learn more, learned as much as I could, came back. And that's what I was applying when I was at Ringe with building content platforms. So one platform we built, for example, was Pulse, the Pulse Live that exists in Kenya
Oh
now.
wow.
So
Well
we
done.
found that in Nigeria as it was Pulse Nigeria.blogspot, I think. I can't remember what it was called, but it was a blogspot. Worked with the team there, so Dafe and Tope, hi guys, and helped systemize the whole thing, build it out. We built a studio where we started doing production work on the side. We built the agency side where we started doing marketing work on the side. Like, built it out so that it has ways of making money. Replicated it in Ghana, in Senegal, in Kenya, and so on and so forth, right? Pulse. So it starts as a blog and then you grow it into this thing. Now, obviously, they have the benefit of there was money behind it. So my thing after that became, how do you do this without relying on foreign funds? So that was a problem I was trying to crack from the beginning. And that's when the influencer wave hit. And it had existed kind of, like it was bubbling under there, but it wasn't a systemized thing. So we kept trying to figure out, how do we systemize the content creation so that we can get to a point where people can make money as individuals, as brands. And that's where now Zaumu kind of comes in, because the idea came in before COVID hit, and then COVID hit, and everybody hit like it was a hard reset.
Right.
And we hoped that, things like Wowzy that was coming up, or like, we hoped they're gonna take this mantle and run with it and actually build systems and infrastructure and whatnot. So I give that whole narrative to say, the way I see things now is that we are at a point where boring work needs to be done. The boring work of setting up, infrastructure that makes sense. We need to actually force agencies and brands to get into the habit of treating creators the way they treat contractors and
And
agencies.
brands, yeah.
Right?
Because they are brands.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, we also need to get to a point where people have the same type of operations you guys do, where you have systems and you have ways of working and you check in on your progress and you keep track.
Basically, formalization.
So there's a lot of formalization and boring work that needs to be done. There's a lot of education. I was telling you, like, my crazy week. I've come from training about 30 or so creators who are going to be running a campaign in the health space. But, some of them just e-tims. Why do I need an e-tims? The very foundational basic things of what you need to be able to operate are just not being done, because the informal sector is also injecting itself into the influencer space.
Absolutely.
And it's becoming really casual. Like, I watched a brand yesterday. I just happened to be in the room and they were talking to a creator and they agreed on how much, and the person was M-Pesa'd. And I was like, please don't do that. Like, there was no contract. There was no invoice. Please don't. Like, you do not understand what you've agreed to. You've not checked what they're going to ask you to do. Like, you now have the money.
Yeah.
So you now owe these people. How are you protecting yourself as a creator, right?
And for how long? Because perpetuity.
You haven't read the contract
Yeah.
to see what rights. You haven't agreed how you're transferring them. So by the time they put together that contract and say, we've paid you 55,000.
And some of these things are fleeting, eh?
Very
Especially if you have
fleeting.
not thought through
Yeah.
the business of it, the brand of it,
Yeah.
the systems, the structures for sustainability.
Exactly.
You hit a high and then the next minute you're forgotten.
Yeah.
You ate some money and it wasn't sustainable.
Yeah, I think we talked about this. There are creators where, like, I know creators who made millions in 2020 who this year are struggling to make 200, 300,000. And a lot of it just goes down to, have you built yourself for scalability? Have you built yourself for sustainability? That's on just the individual level. Then we look at, like, what's happening now, podcasts where you have multiple people and teams involved and so on and so forth. How much do you own of what you're doing?
Absolutely.
Right?
So it's very important.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot of those different things that just aren't being fully considered when people are building, because you're building like, I can't remember who it was who said, we're building like farmers, where we're looking at it like we go and we till and then we, harvest and sell. as opposed to thinking about it like, produce companies, where you build systems around owning the farm and hiring farmers.
And also route to market and formalizing that route to market. And
Right.
what does that value chain look like?
Extremely
Yeah.
boring
So
stuff.
I'm beginning to think it's also, again, for me and Wago, and some of the things we keep seeing is we haven't been taught how to formalize, how to understand the power of brands, that they're separate
To
entities
do
from you.
business, basically.
Yeah, to do business.
Yeah.
And there's a lot more of that. And you find it's actually why we never formalize things. We never understand that this vehicle is actually the real creator of value, not you,
Yeah.
right? And you can
100%.
actually get it to actually change your life.
Mm.
And we don't treat it as such. And I think that's why we started this podcast. Like we noticed a lot of things where we can actually educate, even for ourselves as well.
Mm-hmm.
Go and trademark your brand. Put together your structures, your processes. You will get tired at some point.
Yeah.
So think about succession and things like that. And,
Yeah.
and I want us to segue, even as we sort of conclude.
Are you zooming out? Because I really want to zoom out as well.
Yeah, because I wanted
Yeah.
to look at Sed's narrative around future of African content,
Ooh, okay.
And even like AI and what does, because there are two scenarios.
influence of AI, and
Yeah, there are two scenarios. The first one is AI comes and eats up the creator. And two, the AI actually uplifts and changes the entire game. Because whether we like it or not, this is an inflection point or a disruption point. And so what are you seeing?
Okay, can I give you like my crazy bold prediction?
Your what's it? Your
Crazy
crazy
big
audacious, hairy
Your
audacious
big,
goal.
hairy, audacious goal
Yeah.
bag. So my crazy prediction is that Africa will be the continent where the creative economy will be least impacted by AI. Yeah.
Say more.
Okay, so I'm saying this for two reasons.
Yeah.
One, we hold storytelling to a different standard as a culture, like not monolithic culture, but just one of the few things that kind of ties us together, whether you look at it like the griots of West Africa or you look at it as, Swahili culture and the oral side of it, is we hold storytellers to a different to a different standard, right?
Because knowledge was transferred through stories as well.
Exactly,
Yeah.
right? And a lot of what exists that has value here is still held by individuals. But more so, those stories then have different value when they come from a person. So there's some things that AI will eat up very quickly. And there's some stories and some storytellers that can find themselves being replaced by AI. But there's a lot of things where we still hold banter here doesn't mean the same thing. It doesn't mean the same thing as abroad, right? Like people connect through commiseration and through codependence and through having moments of like sharing emotion at that level. Like we talked about, what is the social currency being transferred, right? We still learn by engaging with our elders. There's a podcast we work on where we have intergenerational dialogues.
Oh,
We'll
that's
get
beautiful.
former people who are leaders, like the former Chief Justice talking to Masi Mutemi, who's like an upcoming lawyer, and have them discuss what needs to change in the legal structures for Kenya. Things like that you can't replace that with AI. And in some spaces, there is enough documentation and systematic documentation where some of those things can disappear. There are places where culture has become so unrooted and monolithic. I'm not hating on America, but genuinely, you could create a brand book for the US. You can't do that for one country in Africa. You know the way we struggle with what is Kenyan truly?
Yeah, we spoke
Yeah.
about that this week.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What exactly is
What's our flavor?
That's specifically the value that is held by the fact that there are 51 different, well, not 51. I don't know how many different tribes, how many different cultures, how many different stories, and how many different ways to tell stories that you can't take AI and just blanket. So I think we have a different thing here because somewhere in the back of our minds, we're going to look for the people. The wave will come, you can't fight quantity. So the wave of AI content will come.
Yeah.
But you also can't fight where people put their value, because then what will happen is then people will start looking for you, because they will start saying, I don't want to have another notebook LLM podcast about, GHC topics. I would much rather listen to this guy because he knows about it. And that's where you're going to see that going. So long term, the way I see it is, if we are able to build systems and economies around it, and build ways that we can be able to transact that, we become the people who own the story for a while. I think every continent has had an era where they drove the narrative of the world for a little while. So like Europe held it for a minute,
Yeah.
when it was the time of like philosophy and all that, random stuff. Prior to that, Africa did, but we'll get into that when we get into that. And then Hollywood and this era of America just kind of owning things is happening. China was trying to get into it a little bit, but I feel like if we're looking at long term future, at some point African stories are going to be so valuable that we're going to have to be the people that determine how the world is looked at, because we'll be the last storytellers standing.
That's amazing.
Last storyteller standing.
That's my big
I love it so
ridiculous
much.
vision.
And it's amazing. Said we must have you back again. I think
I'd be happy to come
we
back.
will
Yeah.
continue to explore. We thank you for your time.
Thank you.
This has been amazing and long in the making, and we're happy to be back
Yeah.
in rhythm.
Yes.
Hallelujah.
I'm happy you're both back for different reasons. So super happy to see you. Super happy to see you for
yes,
different reasons. Yeah.
But I feel like you're when we started the podcast, you let us know some of the business. It was business, Africa, impact, and I think content creation.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Your thematic areas are still the same across your whole life. And I'm just seeing those threads just kind of connecting in your different entrepreneurship ventures. And I do feel like a lot of times we've had it before, that the personality, who you are, and I liked what you said, your internal constitution eventually becomes your whole life's kind of pathway. Yeah. And so
Yeah.
your thematic areas are still the same.
That's
As you
strong.
kept talking, yes.
Just like business.
Yeah.
Impacts.
Africa, content creation, systems thinking is also very big.
Yeah.
And so I'm really excited to see what's coming.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I'm happy to be here just because you two are like two of the smartest people I know.
Oh, gosh.
Thank you. We
This
try.
is by far my favorite podcast. I'm so happy I have a mug now. I'm going to cherish this deeply. But yeah, it was great. It was great. Always happy to talk to you guys on off camera. Please let me know. Always available.
Absolutely. And for us, we will continue to tell stories. I think one of the things we have been putting together is a plug, our column, and we'll put the link
Yeah.
down there, so you guys just keep reading. We have been highlighting a couple of things in terms of where
been
you
very
can go
dope.
and plug in
Yeah.
what's happening systematically, and trying to actually, one of our biggest visions was actually to build resources for guys
Democratize
and
knowledge.
democratize
Yeah.
knowledge and frameworks and all those
should partner on this.
fancy things. Absolutely, you're more than welcome. So guys, you're more than welcome. Like, subscribe, and
Read.
Like, subscribe, share,
read.
Yeah.
comment, ask questions, tag people.
Challenge us.
Challenge us.
Not
Yeah.
troll. Challenge.
Yes,
Big
yes,
difference.
Very important.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. And it's a wrap.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right. Cheers, bud.
Cool.